These people strongly approve of Donald Trump. And yet 23% of them are like, yeah, that's fascist. They like it. They're like, sweet, shut those jerks up. Question, is there any polling on Antifa? Do Americans think they're just an idea? Is this John Fawcett? Is this a plant? That's exactly what our next topic is. Yeah, we did polling on Antifa. And yes, people are happy that Donald Trump designated them a domestic terror organization. Imagine that. President Donald Trump recently issued an executive order designating Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Approve or disapprove? 39% approve strongly, 14% somewhat, 53%. So a decent majority to only 30%, 36% who disapprove, only 26% strongly disapprove. So that's almost plus 20. That's not that bad. But the problem is there's an 11% not sure, which is driving these numbers down. You know, the 18 to 29s, only 20% strongly disapprove. That kind of disturbs me given the previous 18 to 29-year-old polling we saw. But they still are plurality approve, just lower strong approve than anybody else. And, you know, the black people are really like a lot more pro Antifa than other folks, but not like by a ton. And only 27% of Democrats approve of declaring Antifa a terrorist organization. I don't know if that's a fear response or they don't really, maybe they're not exposed to all the Antifa violence. I really don't get this. But only 45% of them strongly disapprove. So that's kind of nice. Like, I don't know. I mean, I like the Republican ones are obvious. Like, that's great. 68% strongly approve. 84% total approve, and independents 49. I would like to see the independents higher. There is an aspect though of fascism that people don't understand what fascism is, but the leftist echo chambers have been pretty good, sort of like creating this dictatorial air around Donald Trump. They really have. Part of it's from January 6th, part of it's from just all of the harping over him for 10 years. But every time we ask a question about fascism or dictatorial stuff, like people say, yeah, that's right about Trump. I like, +5 or +10. Recently, we just asked a question about whether fascism is here because Jimmy Kimmel got fired. And it was like, it was over +10. I forget what it was, but people are like, yeah, of course fascism is here. This is fascism, including a lot of Trump voters. But they're like, sweet. Like, I love it. Let's shut this guy up. Like, I'm being kind of glib, but like that exists. And liberals are obviously super against this. And it's weird to see like how big of a break there is between Democrats and liberals. So obviously some of those liberals are coming from the independents. We can go out to Trump 2024 vote too. Yeah, 88% approve of Donald Trump voters, and Kamala Harris voters disapprove. 51% strongly disapprove. So that's popular. And it's obviously pissing some people off. And obviously some people aren't sure. But it's like, this is the bad number. This is the 26% number. And is it a complete Venn diagram overlap with the people who appreciate the fact that Luigi Mangione killed a CEO? Not directly one-to-one, but if these were in the same data set, I could tell you I would be looking for how much of an overlap there is. Which statement is closer to your belief? Antifa is an idea, principle, a slogan, not an organization. 32%. Now, the problem is 24% aren't sure. They don't know. This work hasn't been done. And so this is the thing, like designate them a terrorist organization. Maybe Trump could have just said, hey, we're opening an investigation. Like when people do criminal stuff, you investigate them and then arrest them. And maybe they just needed to investigate and arrest a whole ton of Antifa people, and that would have been a viable option. I don't know why they haven't done that already, especially with all the death threats and stuff like that. I don't know why they didn't do that. Probably some way to do it with RICO or whatever. I'm just saying. This is a bold step. It really is. Like saying, hey, like these are U.S. citizens, and I guess declaring them a domestic terrorist organization gives Trump power and abilities to do atypical things. There's probably some constitutional problems there, which is why only 44% agree that Antifa is a decentralized yet coordinated terror network. So that number is just not as high as I would have thought. But, there's just not, like, this is really getting the people that care most about Antifa are the people who are most subjected to brainwashing is what's very likely going on. And everybody pretty much says it's a terrorist network by a plurality, even black voters, except for Democrats. Democrats, 46% of them say it's an idea, 24% terrorist network. So you get a feel for the Democrats. They are not ideologically pure. They're just expected to be by their leaders. That's the problem with Democrats. Liberals, 61%. So if you identify as a liberal, you're basically an Antifa member at this point, is what it comes down to. So if this is a domestic terror organization now, it might catch a lot of people. Where do you draw the line? So it's like, okay, Antifa, some people are paid, a lot of people are volunteers, but does that mean you're an official member if you just show up to meetings? And what if they host an event and they use the Action Network? Is Action Network implicated in organizing domestic terrorist activities? Because a lot of Democrats use the Action Network to go to things like the No Kings rally. And if Antifa helped run the No Kings rally, which I think is what we'll find, because some of these people probably overlap with groups like Indivisible, does that mean that if you go to one of those events, like, you see what I'm saying? But we declared war on Al-Qaeda, so I guess we can do it. And so this is like sort of the context. This was also pretty recent, and it's about domestic terrorism. How confident are you in the ability of federal government to protect Americans against terrorist attacks? Like, whatever, confident, not that confident, but which is a greater threat to the U.S., foreign or domestic terrorism? People think domestic terrorism, 60%, 24% foreign. Remember, this is a country that lost the Twin Towers 24 years ago. People said they would never forget. We invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. We declared mission complete. We only left Afghanistan like 4 years ago now. And we still have a hostile Iran that we just like bombed. And yet people really don't care about foreign terrorism. They just don't. And I don't know if it's out of sight, out of mind, because it's in Europe a lot, right? I think we're seeing a lot of that. Well, at a certain point, the foreign terrorism over there is domestic terrorism. God, that's dark. But the increased threat of political violence, and this number was high before Charlie Kirk, I can tell you that right now. We asked it, obviously, because of Charlie Kirk. This number was high before that. Remember, 43% think civil war is coming. Majority of Americans thought there would be a violent reaction after this election, this most recent election. 70% of Democrats who say domestic terrorism, Democrats more than Republicans, are worried about violent extremists. And that is illustrated in this next question. In terms of domestic terrorism, which is the greater threat? Extreme right-wing terrorism or is it extreme left-wing terrorism? And it's right-wing terrorism. People are afraid of MAGA extremists. People are afraid of red hats and AR-15s by 5 points. Now, 18% not sure still. And you could say, all right, well, maybe they don't know the difference between right wing and left wing. Maybe that's it. But it's like the people on the bookends, people watching MSNBC and people on Reddit are the ones more likely, well, maybe there isn't an age signal. Look at that 40 to 49 bracket. That's weird. Party, 62% of Democrats say right wing, but fewer, 58% of Republicans say left wing. That's also kind of weird. And maybe it's just because people, the incel school shooters who have probably been unfairly branded as right wing are what people remember. I don't know. Or it's January 6th. January 6th was a scar on the American psyche. There is a January 6th commission now, a new one chaired by Loudermilk. I think it started on September 3rd. I haven't heard a whole heck of a lot. I think they're writing their strongly worded letters right now. They need to fix that really fast. They need massive and rapid disclosure of all the ways in which January 6th was co-opted. Because even 25% of Republicans said January 6th was the biggest threat to democracy since the Civil War. This is why people think that the right wing domestic extremism threat is bigger than the left wing, even though the left wing guy still just shot Charlie Kirk. Now, part of that is that according to Gallup, I think it was, no, YouGov, only 10% of Democrats entertain the thought that that guy out in Utah was a left wing shooter. Everywhere, they're still being told on Reddit, on Blue Sky, on Threads, and that percolates out. The problem is that, you know, the way their narratives flow is really dangerous. It's like, I think that they go from the CIA probably to like places like the Atlantic, and then the Atlantic puts them on Reddit. And then from Reddit, you have people go spread it on like Threads, and then it gets to Facebook, and all the insane people like on just rub it in people's face on Facebook. I think there's probably a lot of shadow banning still on Facebook, is my guess, because our site has not increased in followers. I can tell you that right now. We've been posting on Facebook pretty religiously almost every day. The entire time I've worked at Rasmussen Reports, we've gained 0 followers on the page. And some of the stuff gets a decent amount of clicks. Not really though. They hate us. So anyways, yeah, a lot of people on the channel have seen this, but there's a lot of new people here. Charlie Kirk was speaking hateful words, and his murder was tragic, but it was understandable. And 26% of Americans agree with that statement. There's that same 26% number that strongly disapprove of Trump designating Antifa a terrorist organization. That's the problem. It's less than 30, so that's the good news, but that's the problem. And then, like, even with this Jimmy Kimmel stuff, like I was saying, here's the quote. Agree or disagree, Donald Trump doesn't want a democracy. The president and his lapdogs are implementing a dangerous agenda to punish their opposition. Fascism is not on the way. It's already here. And 58% agree with that statement, and only 38 disagree. It is plus 20. Plus 20. That's really huge. A quote, people agreeing with a quote that says that Donald Trump's essentially being a fascist. 35% of Republicans. Is this because they like, you know, Jimmy Kimmel? It might be because some of them like really like the First Amendment. Are you seeing a higher number? No, conservatives and Republicans are pretty close. Liberals are definitely the size of the signal from liberals and Democrats. Look, 77% of Democrats think it's fascist. Firing Jimmy Kimmel was fascist. Because it was all Jimmy Kimmel questions and then that question. And only 18% of Democrats disagree, but only 49% of Republicans. That's not a high number. So you have 77% of Democrats on one side and only 60% of Republicans on the other. And if you go out and look at Trump 2024 voters, actually look at strong approve. These people strongly approve of Donald Trump. And yet 23% of them are like, yeah, that's fascist. They like it. They're like, sweet, shut those jerks up. And I'm sorry, like, this happens. The pendulum swings. Like, what is even the law? We have a constitution. We have courts. The courts have been used to the detriment of our rights and freedoms and to a just legal system. And it's like, okay, well, if you're a leader, you do things, and you should be conscientious about the ramifications of your actions. But also, there's just, you don't know sometimes. I don't know. And again, I think like Sinclair is the one that did this. And I don't think that the Trump administration like told Sinclair to do it. You know, the appearances are the appearances, and the appearances here, people thought it was fascist by 20 points. Is it going to move the numbers? No, his approval rating didn't move at all. And so it's just one of those things. And if there's a problem, maybe the courts will sort it out, or maybe they won't, or maybe it'll set a dangerous precedent, or maybe it won't. But my takeaway here is that people are fed up, and they're willing, when they're fed up, to let a little bit more stuff slip through the cracks. Because ultimately, while I absolutely love the Constitution, as do Americans, it's got a pretty high favorability rating. It's not a suicide pact. Definitely not. what is even America? We're bound together with that document for sure, but that document can be changed. It's good. I could think of a few things to improve it, as could we all, and it's not going to get approved. So at a certain point, our problems might get too big where it's like, well, we have to reevaluate what America is. And, we're people with a shared culture. Certainly that's something. It changes for sure. We were that melting pot, whatever the heck that is. The salad bowl, we're a salad bowl. People will tolerate a lot, and they are pretty happy with National Guard troops rolling through the cities. 51% think that National Guard in DC has been successful. Only 36% don't. Yeah, they totally approve. What's that? 52% support, 43% don't. National Guard troops in more cities. So look out, Portland. Troops are coming.